Hi, I'm Jessie.
And I'm Natasha.
And together, we host Not Creative, the podcast that flips the script on creativity, bringing together the ones with the ideas and the ones who make it all happen behind the scenes.
In each episode, we dive into the minds of creatives, problem solvers, and the people who prove you don't have to wear the creative label to shape brilliant ideas.
Let's get into it.
Welcome to Not Creative, the podcast that pulls back the curtain on creativity, spotlighting both the ones with the ideas and the ones who make them happen. Today we have a very special guest. Hi, Harry.
Hi.
Harry is an author, a marketing consultant, and a copywriter who has been guiding some of the biggest and small but exciting B2B tech companies sharpen their narrative. We're very lucky to have him. He's a very big get, y'all.
Yes. And Harry has been in our lives for quite a long time.
Sometimes by choice.
We may or may not have forced him to be here today.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to start by saying I think Harry has schemed his way onto this podcast so that we have to be nice to him because we have kind of a bullying aspect of our friendship. But I will say, I will start by a nice thing and then we can very quickly move on to, bloodshed. I think you're a very creative person, Harry. I think you're a very creative person, not least because you are able to take very abstract ideas in the tech industry and bring them into a sort of tangible way. But you've also studied design and then made a living as a writer. So, I mean, by most definitions, that is a creative person.
I suppose so. I mean, I would say that the year I spent studying design was me confirming that I'm not a designer. So I wouldn't call that a huge success. But thank you. That's very nice. I feel like I should take podcasting equipment with me whenever I meet you guys.
And let's not forget, Harry most recently wrote a book. We all have props.
Go on YouTube. Go on YouTube for the prop.
Yes. And if you're listening, go on to Amazon. And Harry's book is called Truth is Better Marketing. So check him out. And we'll be talking much more about the book as the podcast continues. But maybe to get us started, Harry, why don't we start with the big question? What is creativity to you?
To me, creativity comes down to deviance and doing things in a way that deviates from whatever the prescribed thing of it is. Like, I don't think creativity is like some big special, super rare, like mystical quality thing or whatever.
Not woo-woo.
No, it's really not. I don't think so. Like, I think creativity is as much like coming home to cook a meal and you don't have two of the things you need to cook the meal. So now you're cooking a new meal. Like, that's creativity. And I think that's as marvelous as writing a book or, anything else even. So I don't think it's that special, but I do think it's effectively like deviating from the normal path in some way.
Interesting.
It's interesting to hear creativity as more of a like a science, a practice. How does that work for you? A calling, a gift, a curse?
I think it can feel like a calling, I think, at times. I mean, a weird thing about, I just said it's not some mystical woo thing, but now I'm going to tell you a mystical woo thing. When I started trying to write the book, I was actually trying to write a blog post, and I wrote it 4 times in the same document. I wrote the same blog post, like, over the course of, like, maybe 10 days or something, and I was like, why does this blog post suck? I can't figure this out. And then one night, I was lying in bed, trying to fall asleep, and then from, like, here, from the top right of my head, something struck me, and I lurched up in bed, and I had a list of chapter titles, and I went and I typed them out, and then I got back in bed, and I went to sleep. In the morning, I woke up, and I read them again, and I was like, oh my God, these are actually something. And I was like, oh, it's a book. That's why this blog post sucks. I need to, like, have way more to say about this thing. So when something like that happens, I felt duty bound to, now I have to write these things, because I don't know what happened last night, but I have to commit to these things and I have to write them. So that makes it feel like a calling, but I don't know that it is. I think I feel more like a plumber most of the time I'm doing writing, then I feel like some magician, you know?
For a second, when you started saying that something struck you, like at the top of your head, I thought
Yeah.
you were going to say that, like, oh, something fell off from the walls, or
I mean, by the
you
way,
had like one of your figurine toys like just falling from the shelves
yeah,
and just striking you. I was like, this is going to be so typically Harry to have
yeah,
like, oh yeah, like I had this like strike of genius. It just came to me at night, but actually it was just like this thing that was in my wall and fell on me.
yeah. No, the book is actually a response to a very bad concussion.
And Harry, what do you like? What would you say? What does it mean to be creative for you? I think we talked about creativity, what creativity means to you. We talked about this not being something magical, but at the same time, sometimes feeling like a calling, right? And like you
Hmm.
have this tension there. So being creative, and I think one of the things that we are really digging into the podcast is you have certain professions that are inherently considered creative and some that are
Hmm.
not.
Yeah.
But then you have humans and all the creativity that sparks in humans. So
Yeah.
when you're thinking about like being creative, what does that mean to you?
I certainly don't think it's some professions are and some professions aren't, or like some roles are or some aren't. Any job that a human is doing, they are probably employing some degree of creativity. They are in some way experts on their domain, and because of their expertise they're willing to take certain risks or make certain choices that someone who it doesn't have that much expertise wouldn't make. Like they might follow a textbook, or they might follow a, well, I was in school, these were the 7 steps we followed. But I mean, there's creative accountants, for instance. They don't like it when you call them that, but there are. Um, so I think, to me, effectively, what it boils down to is there's a unique stream of experience and perspective and opinion that is naturally flowing through every human person. And the more you're adhering to that stream, the more creative everyone else will tell you you're being. And effectively, I think it's like if you're being the weirdo you are, then they'll say being creative. um, but I think by definition, if you're following the pack, or if you're doing what everyone else is doing simply because everyone else is doing it, then I think that it's reasonable to say that that's somehow non-creative, that's like mimicking a little bit more.
Interesting. I think it's really interesting. And again, this is probably because you do things outside of your work life, like rock climbing and bouldering. You've framed creativity as risk taking and embracing like deviations. It feels like from a listener that you're talking a lot about choices. It's
Yeah.
like it's sort of, yes, you're being the weirdo that you are, but you're actually you're making a choice that is maybe not what expected or not what's anticipated. And
Yeah.
I wonder if making those choices is really part of expressing creativity.
Yeah. So I think it's definitely about making choices. And I would say, having um having spent a lot of time in agencies where creativity is this sort of a rigid process. There are deadlines and deliverables, and there are expectations, and there are meetings to make sure, are we meeting the expectations, and all of that. You're constantly under the microscope. Contrasting that with like writing a book for myself, I do think that a lot of the choices that go into creativity are kind of necessarily inexplicable. It's hard to explain where the choices come from. To some extent, I think figuring out how to explain the choices is a bit of a dead end. I don't think it's useful. It can even be like counterproductive at times. So I think they're choices, but I think they're like deeply personal choices that are that could be. I mean, the first time you gave me a rude birthday card, there was a chance that I wouldn't have gotten the joke, but it was that risk that you took that made the joke worth telling. And so there's something like paradoxical in that, which isn't always easy to, explain to someone. But if you didn't make that, who would you be,
I think what you're talking about is a lot about the receiver, isn't it? Is the audience, is when is the expression of creativity and how is it being perceived?
Yeah,
Because Jessie's rude birthday card
yeah,
knew her audience, and
yeah,
she took a risk that you wouldn't take the joke, but she also knew you enough to feel comfortable to take that risk. And I think when you talk about the like writing a book for yourself versus working in a marketing agency, there is that tension that I find it worth exploring when you are being creative towards a brief. Like you're being creative towards a client, an objective, an audience that you want to reach versus doing your own art and doing something personal,
yeah.
and how those two things live together. And one of them not necessarily being less creative than the other, but one of them having certain constraints that you have to adhere to. And how do you make choices based on that versus making choices to your own personal work?
Yeah, I really I flip-flop on this one a lot. Doug Kessler's definition of balance has always been my favorite one, which is balance is that thing you miss as you swing wildly from extreme to extreme. Um, and uh, so I tend to swing from extreme to extreme in terms of this thing on like, does the audience matter? Does the audience not matter? And it feels like a very binary thing to me. Like in an agency context or in a marketing context, I feel like we're so obsessed with the audience and understanding the audience, and let's have another persona document, and let's, really obsess about these folks and make something that's, really perfect for them. And clearly there's merit in doing that. Clearly you can do some useful things that way. But my experience of writing the book was that the hardest thing about it was maintaining my intention for the book and maintaining what was motivating me for the book in spite of the sound of the audience in my head. So I'm going to write this book in a way that even if no one likes it, I'll be proud I wrote it. And that was very deliberately the road I went down. And I'm really glad I did. I don't think I'd be quite as satisfied with the experience if I hadn't done that.
I understand where you're coming from, but I almost feel like you were the audience for the book. So I know that you're talking about like doing things in spite of the audience, but you just said how you really had the urge and the need to express yourself in a certain way, and you needed to do it in a way that you were proud of. So I know that it's contradicting a little bit what you're saying, but I feel like you were staying true to the audience, which was yourself, because you wanted to make something that felt true to you.
In a sense, yeah. But then I wouldn't have had to publish the book, right? Then just writing it would have been enough, and it would have been a Word document on my um laptop. And don't get me wrong, I have plenty of things that are that way, plenty of things that are like desperately unpublishable. But I think are like, they were important things for me to write. I suppose I think of it this way. I think years ago I used to run a night of stand-up comedy, and a thing I learned from that experience was if you go up on stage with material being like, oh, they're gonna love this, it almost never works. But if you go up on stage being like, this made me laugh so much by myself that I think it's worth sharing with other people. I think if you go in with that mindset, you're almost always on to something better. I think that's the sequence of it, is that it makes her laugh, then it makes me laugh, rather than you make the thing and you're kind of tense and you're nervous and then you hand it to someone else and then hopefully they have a good response. I don't know that that second sequence is as like reliable
Mhm.
a path.
And how do you think that translates into a business world? Because you're talking about you need to really believe in it. That's basically what you're
Yeah,
saying. You need to really believe in the idea, in the creativity, in whatever it is that you are putting out there.
yeah,
And we all work with clients and companies for a really long time, and there are so much hesitation into doing things differently.
yes.
And sometimes you really believe in something being different. So how to go about it? Like how almost to convince others and to let the idea see the light of day.
I really think maybe a mistake we've made in the marketing world is that we try to make clients and businesses feel like the thing they're doing is not risky. when they're publishing something, when they're conveying something. I think it should feel risky. You should be kind of scared. And I don't mean you should be kind of scared in terms of like, oh no, what if, they don't, what if the ad doesn't, hit these KPIs or whatever. I think you should be a little nervous in terms of like, this might alienate some people. I think that's a really important thing. And I think it's actually quite an exciting thing, to alienate people with communication. So I think in the business world, probably the best versions of people producing campaign creative or even content that I've seen have been, there's one person within the business who feels really strongly about that point of view. And there might be 7 or 8 people clucking around them, but they all are in deference to that one person's sense of taste, or that one person's opinion. And when they let that person have their way and they publish the thing, I think that tends to be those things tend to be far more successful than, all right, all 18 of us got together and we were really nervous together. And all our nervousness said that the correct answer is this one. Like, I don't know that I've ever seen that have wild success.
It's funny because I often think my role as a classic non-creative type is to be a risk assessment triage, to basically go through this is risky, but it's worth it because, or this is a choice we're making and it comes with a penalty, but we take that penalty. I often think it's part of my job is to both rationalize and assess where the dragons are, where we think the dragons are, and give that map of dragons with the creative idea to say, this will alienate some people, but it's okay because to almost mitigate and make the creative more successful as a result. I often think that that's a role that I play as a classic non-creative.
But it is true, isn't it? Like we used to joke that we are the client representatives within an agency. And that means a lot of the time saying no to ideas that we know our clients well enough to understand what they will like and what they want. But also it means helping them push boundaries, right? Like helping them kind of like break down those fears, because if they don't take risk, if they don't do something that is different, it's going to be very hard for them to get noticed. And like there are so many different layers to risk, because you have the risk of, oh my god, am I making the right decision? Like, should I go for this idea or for that? Should I publish this book or not? There is the personal risk, but there is also the risk of, is this going to resonate with my audience, and is it going to reach the results that I want to reach? But more often than not, I feel like we can all agree that the ideas that do feel the riskier tends to be the ones that are most successful, not the other way around. Like things that are quite safe and vanilla, they are not going to stand out in the same way than something that feels a bit risky, that gets you a little bit scared. And I think, like, talking about fear, I'm gonna try to smoothly segue. Talking about fear, like, Harry, you talk a lot about truth in your book. It is called like Truth is Better Marketing. And it will be good if you can talk to us a little bit about the concept of finding this truth. Why is it that you think is better marketing? And even from a creative context, like, how do you think that truth works within creativity?
Yeah, so the premise of the book was, that came from like years and years of feeling kind of idealistically that like, why don't we all just tell the truth? And never really saying that to anyone, because you sound like a 4-year-old when you say stuff like that. But then I'd been reflecting on, all these years I spent doing this thing, and it just occurred to me that like it's not even that it's truth is better for some like moralistic reason, or for some invisible sense of integrity or something. I think we just make more money if we really committed to the truth. And so for me, the fundamental divide between allowing bullshit to dominate marketing and allowing truth to dominate marketing is a fundamental openness to the potential that you might be wrong, that you might not know something, that the thing you think is correct might end up being kind of a fairy tale that you've been telling yourself. And I think as long as brands have that, as long as marketers have that openness within them, I think it opens up a lot of really interesting avenues and possibilities for them. The reason why I think it's so effective is in a communication level, it begets differentiation almost infinitely, in the sense that every company will have a unique view of truth because of the very specific position they have in the market. Every marketer within those companies will have a unique view of truth because of the position they hold within the company. And that uniqueness is gold dust. That's the stuff that we're always hoping our clients are bringing to us. So I think from a communication point of view, it begets a huge amount of differentiation. From a strategy point of view, I think it helps make more specific decisions than your competition will make, and it helps you exist in positions that no one else in the market wants to be in. Ultimately, I think that's the most important thing you can be doing from a strategic point of view, because the way I see it anyway with strategy, it's always about making decisions about your finite resources. And if you're making the same decisions with your finite resources as someone else with slightly more resources than you, then what a waste of time for everyone. And so if paying closer attention to what you know is true, but maybe you can't explain, but maybe is uncomfortable, but maybe a lot of people in the company don't want to admit is true, but really paying attention to it and honoring it and doing something about it takes you to a place in the market that no one else will want to go to because they're all worried about it.
Mm. Something that was really striking me when I was reading the book was who decides what is truth, especially in the context of creativity. How do you define truth?
So my sense of it, and I very deliberately tried not to get into a discussion about what is truth, because I thought, okay, I'm going to have 7,000 words of philosophy before I get into the marketing book, and that doesn't feel like it's going to be useful. But more important than that, the really crucial thing to me was we all have an innate internal compass for what is true and what is bullshit. We've all been on calls with clients where they've said something that was really important to them, and we've all rolled our eyes because we all know it's kind of bullshit. We've all had that experience. And the thing that matters to me in the context of truth is the radar and the compass. That's the thing that matters. So for me, it's this thing within everyone that they have. I open the book with a quote from a TV show because it's one of my favorite definitions of truth, which is truth is that thing that you can hold inside yourself and know is real. That's what truth is fundamentally. And it doesn't bother me that that's not something that can translate into a PowerPoint deck. The fact that the truth is so inconvenient and so annoying, I think doesn't deter me from thinking that it's vitally important. And so for me, that the question of like who defines it, you define it, Jess defines it. And I think we have complex discussions about that. And that's a better approach to it versus let's just all agree to disagree. And therefore let's put this big thing of bullshit on the table that we all know none of us is going to agree with, even though secretly we're all rolling our eyes at it. I just think that's like so plainly a worse way to do things than the slightly squishier, harder to explain thing of, okay, I'm going to pay attention to what I believe is true. And I would believe it's true whether the scary executive was in the room or not.
Well, speaking of worse things.
Yeah.
I want to know what you would put in room 101. And you're able to put concepts or items or groups of people or whatever in room 101 and say that is a concept that is banned forever.
Yeah.
So what's going in room 101? Not the truth?
No, no, I think some amount of bullshit is healthy. I think bullshit's actually kind of a useful way to get to truth sometimes. I'm gonna say, and this might be controversial, but not very original, but I'm gonna say awards.
Awards! Cloudly and enthusiastically.
Awards in all domains are complete scams and absolute trash and a waste of everyone's time, and way too much focus goes onto these things, and the complete hooey.
I love that.
Yeah.
I hate awards so hard. I
Yeah.
mean, every couple of years we'll go through a cycle where we're like, ah, yeah, we should probably enter some awards. And then we
Right.
spend time and money entering the awards, and it's a
Yeah.
whole big thing. And I hate them so hard. Oh God, I wasn't expecting to agree with you, but
Yeah, no, I really I think when I was younger and I saw people, I've never liked awards. I've always thought they were nonsense. But when I was younger, I was always sort of like in somewhat some degree of deference to. I was like, oh, there's these more senior people than me, and they seem to care about awards. Maybe there's some value to them and stuff. And now I'm too old to give a shit. They're nonsense. They're a complete scam. I've long for a long time joked that the easiest way to make money is invent an awards category, and
Oh,
then
but
get people to
100%.
pay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Say though, I am gonna be the controversial voice in the room.
please. Yeah,
Uh, I hear you. I hear
yeah,
everything. But
yeah.
the thing is, like, I do agree that awards are absolute bullshit. I do think though that they're still, unfortunately, a necessary evil because of society, like because of the world that we live in and how that's perceived. Again, like I go back to the audience, and now I'm running my own, like, studio, and we do think about which work that we can do can win awards, because that means exposure, that means credibility. It means that, well, you're a new studio, but you won this award, so you must be doing something good, because unfortunately that is still how a lot of people and potential clients perceive things.
they're
So
a mark of
yeah,
validation. They are completely a mark of validation.
exactly. Like, I completely hear you. It's not, I don't think awards should be a measure of our value or
Yeah.
even the value of our work, but I think that I look at awards as a marketing tool.
I'm sympathetic to the idea that, okay, maybe there's some value in showcasing the best work in any domain every year. And we're going to comb through all the work that's been done. And we're going to decide these are the 10 best of this thing, of movies, of, football players, whatever. But the lack of rigor with which those things are done is, I think, the thing that really annoys me. And I mean, having written award entries for brands for a long time, I know that the process of doing this stuff is completely farcical, where it's not like we're saying, oh, what's actually the best work that's been done this year? It's what do we think we could get an award for? Based on that,
Yeah.
which clients do we think, of those things, which clients do we think would let us do this? Of those clients, which ones will actually give us some data that we can put in for the award entry? And then based on that, let's post-rationalize the intent of the campaign. I should say, as a point of measure, there is one category of awards that I do believe in, which is the Effies. I learned so much from the Effies and the case studies and things like that. But they're so far and away the exception that I think it proves the rule that in almost all cases it's just a big, what's a nice word for circle jerk? And that's what that's
I get
yeah.
you.
Oh, good.
I think we should do some rapid fire questions.
Oh shit. All right.
Yeah? Are you
Okay.
ready?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the number one thing that not creators do that you value the most?
Prioritize.
Ooh,
Yeah. I mean, creatives do it as
I was
well.
not expecting that from Harry.
no.
When you're young in a creative job, I feel like everything's important. Everything's really exciting. Like no detail isn't worth sweating over. And then you get older and you're like, I don't have all this time, and we don't have all these resources, and we don't have all this money. And so then you have to make the nature of decisions ends up being asymmetrical, shall we say. Like, we've got 5 clients who are asking us to do 18 things at the same time. We physically cannot treat all of them equally. How do we decide which of these things go first? And how do we decide where we send the most senior people? Like, those kinds of choices, I think, are it's a real demonstration of expertise, I think, when people do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I like that. I like
Yeah.
that a lot.
So on that vein, how do you think not creatives contribute to creativity?
Um, uh, this is another Jessica Tracy thing. But a kind of image that's always lived in my head about about this point is one of the first jobs I had at Velocity was an ebook or it was like a 2,000 word ebook or something.
I wondered, that was our first project together.
It was like a 2-day job. This is not a big deal, this job. It was a very straightforward thing. And to brief me, she walked up to my desk and she plonked down, I'm not exaggerating, 40 pages of printed material and said, this is useful if you're going to write about this. This is useful if you're going to write about that. This isn't that useful, but it's interesting. I think it'll get you juices flowing. And just like the intensity of her enthusiasm for the thing kind of left me being like, there's no physical way I could half-ass this job now. Like I have to do this. So I would say enthusiasm. I would say enthusiasm is probably maybe the most important thing.
That's
yeah.
I love the story.
That story took a turn. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't think it was gonna end in enthusiasm. I thought it was gonna end in she wasted all that paper. She's a monster.
No, I had prepared more horrible things to say about you, but they haven't come up yet. So
right. That's the Burn It to the Ground episode, our spin-off podcast. Okay, well then and it can't be either Nat or I, who's your favorite not creative and why? Not that we were at risk of winning that award. I just thought I'd seed it in the audience's mind that we could be.
So my candidate for this, having thought about it, is a woman named Alison Armstrong, at least that used to be her name, who was a product marketer for a company called Aptio that I really admire and we got to work with. And she is the first person I met and sort of saw her do her job that made me go, oh, I understand the role of product marketing. Like the degree of attention that she was paying to all the specific things that were happening. I think we'd been called into something that was like sales representative training, but she said, everyone who's making content, I want you in this thing as well. And then all of us got together and she just instructed us on all the things you shouldn't do. And I've seen people make these 18 mistakes before. Don't make these mistakes. This is a dumb thing to say. Do not say this dumb thing. And it was just so, the attention to detail was so great, so immense. I was just blown away by it, where like within like an hour, I was like, I feel like I've been writing for this company for a year or something with the amount I know about it now. So I would say her. She's like burned into my memory as an image of competence.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, this has been absolutely lovely.
Thank you so much for having me.
Everyone go read Truth is Better Marketing.
Yes.
We haven't read the title, even if it is a pain in the ass. There's swearing because it's Harry's book.
Yeah.
Everybody go read that.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Take care, folks.
Thanks for listening to Not Creative.
If you like this episode, follow us for more and spread the word.
You can find us on all the streaming platforms, Instagram, and YouTube at Not Creative Podcast.
Catch you next time.
I mean, that was pretty freaking good, man.